a new house, a new job, new marriage, a new family member. All are examples of transitions. On this episode, we will learn how to prepare for and make it through these transitions without letting the chaos of the transitions run the marriage or the family. That's up next on the Healing Place Marriage and Family Podcast.
Welcome to the Healing Place Marriage and Family Podcast, where families are equipped to reflect God's redeeming love. And now, here's your host, Jared Lambert.
Welcome to the Healing Place Marriage and Family Podcast, where families are equipped to reflect God's redeeming love. I'm your host, Jared Lambert. Thank you once again for joining us for this episode. On this episode, the return of Andy and Melody Yarborough, who are the owners of the Well Clinic in Prairieville, Louisiana. Today, we're going to talk about 7 areas of focus for a healthy transition in marriage. So the first question I'm asking myself, and you may be asking, is, well, what is a transition? We'll talk about that later, but just as an example, off the top of my head, I estimate we've lived in 8 different homes through the military, 7 different jobs, occupations. We had 13 years of no kids. Now we had a kid. We went through an adoption. We went through in vitro fertilization. We went through foster care, now working on adoption through foster care. So there's a lot of transitions as far as moving from state to state, city to city, employer to employer. So there's a lot of transition that goes on in a typical normal marriage.
Yes.
So we're going to, this is an expectation to have transitions. So we're going to talk about transitions. So right now we're just going to welcome back our guests, Andy and Melody Yarborough. How you guys doing? Glad to have y'all back.
Thank you. Doing well, Jared.
Doing great, man. Thanks for having us.
All righty. All right, let's jump in. So areas to focus for a healthy transition in marriage. Why do you guys feel that this is important to talk about today?
I think you said it, hit the nail on the head. I mean, people today are transitioning a lot more often than even previous generations. I feel like, my parents have been in the same house for 20, 30 something years. And, a lot of people our generation are able to say, this is the house I grew up in. And kids today might move from 4 or 5 different houses before they even enter high school. So transition is a lot more commonplace now than it ever has been.
Right. So I know I walked through some examples of transition, but tell us about some transitions that either you've experienced or in some of the families and individuals that y'all have worked with at the Well Clinic.
Anything from getting married to moving to starting a new job, family loss, family addition is a transition, having a baby. And starting school, if you or your spouse decide to go back to grad school after you get married, all of those are major transitions. And a lot of times we don't think about the transition before we kind of jump off the cliff.
Right.
And so we don't realize the toll that it takes on us until it's taken a toll.
But when y'all presented this topic as one of the podcast episodes, I'd immediately thought about all the transitions we've made, and I was wondering where you guys been for the last 20-something years. Y'all should have told me this a long time ago.
Well,
okay, go ahead.
It's funny.
This was birthed from our work with people, but it was also birthed because it feels like our lives have been in a constant state of transition. We get married, we move again.
I did grad school, then we moved to another state for Andy to do grad school.
Then moved to LSU with the thought that we were only going to be here for a year, and then I worked for the state, and then I worked for the church, and then we started a business, and all of that time we have children. There's other family struggles as a family that we're walking through at different seasons in that, and it's just, if you're not careful, you end up being organized by the chaos of what's going on around you. And transition, even great transition, tends to create that if you're not being intentional about how you are walking through it.
Yeah.
All right. So again, from your experience, or maybe from some of the individuals and families that y'all have worked with, what are some examples of failed or dysfunctional transitions?
So if you take some of the examples that we just talked about, both personally for us, for you, and then you can imagine the transitions that people are going through. Dysfunction looks like emotional distancing, more and more fighting, exhaustion, burnout, separation, even divorce. And if we're not intentional about connecting while we make that transition, the danger is always there that we end up growing apart. Like Mel used the word toll. We don't really understand the time, the energy, and the toll that a transition takes unless we're paying attention to it. And so there could be serious consequences to even good transition.
If you're not intentional, right?
All right, so let's get into some of the specifics. You say there are 7 areas of focus, so let's talk about those 7 areas of focus.
So, number 1, you want to keep the mission, the vision, and the values of your family in front of you. Why are you transitioning in the first place? And understanding that if it lines up with the mission, vision, and values, great. If it doesn't, how do you accept that responsibility and get back on track? For us, we've talked about the mission of the Well Clinic as we guide people into hope, wellness, and life. As a family, it's an extension of who we are. Our mission, Mel and I were talking about this, but we believe our mission is that anytime people hang out with us, they experience hope, joy, and life. That's their takeaway from time that they have with us. I got this from Dr. Mark Rutland, but vision, if vision is mission extended into the future, our vision for our family is our children in 10 years, bringing hope to people, bringing joy to people, and bringing life to people as Jesus Christ is their source. Mm-hmm. That's our vision as our children, as a family. And so you keep that in front of you. And
and just to jump in real quick, I can tell you right now that Brandy and I do not have an agreed upon mission and vision or even values for our family. So before moving forward, if you're listening, this encourages me to start praying, thinking, and talking and having this conversation about establishing the mission, vision, and values for your family. Because the steps that we're about to talk about is, I don't want to say useless, but I mean, there's not a lot of benefit to going forward with these steps if you don't have that mission, that vision, and those values in place.
You're right.
So again, if you're listening, listen, I've been married 23 years, and we don't have this in place yet, so don't feel bad. But, now that we're exposed to this information, we want to do something with it. So we encourage you, if you don't have a mission and vision for your family, if you don't have a set of values that is guiding your marriage, guiding your parenting, like we spoke about previous episode, then I would just challenge you guys to, start praying, start talking, and then coming up with a mission, vision, and a set of values for your family.
Yeah, I think if this is established even before transition, it keeps you out of unhealthy transition.
That's good. Because
you can make a good decision, but if it's not a missional decision, it can mess you up just as badly as a bad decision. So if you make a decision to take a different job because it's more money, but really more money is not a family value, you're just being organized by we need more money. You can find yourself in a lot more trouble down the road because now you're working 80 hours a week. You're losing the things that are important to you. So the mission, the vision, and then the values. We talked about our core family values in the last podcast, but ours are love, integrity, respect,
responsibility, thankfulness, intellectual curiosity, and hospitality.
Yes.
And so, like Andy said, we would love for people, their takeaway to be, the Yarboroughs are full of love, joy, and life. Fullness of life.
And this is dynamic too. So it doesn't necessarily mean that what you come up with right now is going to be the same thing 2 generations from now, 2 decades from now. But it's something that guides you now. Why, if God is a missional God, let us live missionally. on purpose, intentionally. And this step starts us or keeps us moving in that direction.
Right. All right, so we keep the mission, vision, and values in front of us. What's next?
Research expected time and involvement and get a mentor.
Yep.
When we started...
Research and mentor.
Yes. Research expected time and involvement. I mean, some things are completely unforeseen, but having a general idea helps you not feel like you're just in this funnel cloud of chaos. So when we started the practice, we talked to a lot of people who were business owners and who had done self-start like we were praying through. And it just really helps you be able to go in with your eyes wide open. And then obviously the learning curve is steep. You learn along the way, but you have some idea as to, okay, well, certain responsibilities at home that we have are going to look different. And so how to reprioritize even responsibilities within our family.
Yeah, I really like the idea of mentoring, like you said, because there are some lessons you can learn through teaching versus trial and error.
Yes.
Amen.
Trial and error could cost money. It could cost time. It could, again, cause a lot of chaos. But if you're able to go and speak with someone who has done what you're doing before and learn through conversation some lessons learned, and of course there are some things we're going to learn by trial and error, but if you could knock out a bunch of that stuff by having a sit-down conversation and receiving wisdom, that's going to save a lot of time and a lot of energy.
Yes. And the other thing I'd like to add about mentors, you don't necessarily have to know them personally.
No.
It's important that you do.
Right.
But two people who are mentoring me, one I've met, the other I haven't, is Dr. Mark Rutland and Michael Hyatt. I've met Dr. Mark Rutland. We went through his National Institute for Christian Leadership training. It's a year. It's a shameless plug. I don't get anything in return for that. But my pastor went through it. Unbelievable training. I consider him a mentor. Michael Hyatt, I've learned so much about just practical ways to think about business and blogging, and we're going to implement that soon at our practice. So
he's a virtual mentor.
He's a virtual mentor to
Never met him.
Right.
thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah.
So it's good to have people that you can connect with, but you don't have to know them.
Right. Okay, so we establish a mission, vision, and values, and then we do some research and get a mentor involved. What else?
Number 3 is you want to be sure that you are able to find a healthy rhythm and structure within the context of the transition. I love music. I would not say I'm a musician, but I love music. I love playing music. So I enjoy thinking about life like it's an album, especially concept albums. So different songs have different tempos, different beats, but they're moving you somewhere. And I think different seasons of life have different rhythms, and we need to be able to pay attention and really be intentional about developing healthy rhythm, because if you're not intentional about rhythm and structure, someone else is going to set that for you. Some other stressor is going to set that for you. So if you think about rhythm as the process or the tempo, then structure is the actual schedule. So if rhythm is if you need acoustic versus dubstep, where are you in your life, and how does that need to be set, right? The structure is your schedule, and I think including self-care in rhythm and structure is unbelievably important. Otherwise, you just lose yourself in the transition process.
Mm-hmm. And I see where your values and your mission and vision come in here.
Yes.
Because you want to make sure that your rhythm and structure lines up with the values and the mission and vision that's guiding your family.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And this is not easy. But what's the other option?
Exactly, yeah.
It's
confusion, opposition,
yes,
division. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I'll hear people say things like I was just talking to a fellow this morning, and he said I work 7 days a week. He said I don't want to, but I'm forced to. And I thought, who's forcing you to work 7 days a week? There is some principle or value that's guiding him, that's impacting the rhythm and the structure of his life.
Right.
And is it more money? This is simple, but I would like an F-150, but my Jetta is paid for.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
I am not going to get an F-150 at this point in my life because we have other rhythms and structures in place right now that are more important than me getting a truck. My business, I could make more money by taking some of the contracts that have been offered me, but I've chosen to say no, and it actually allows me to do things like we're doing right now, investing in people, in community, investing in my practice, not just working in it, working on it. Do I make a little less money? Yep, I sure do. But do we provide better, more quality services? Yes, we do.
And you're healthier personally.
I'm healthier. I'm spending time with my family more.
We get full Andy, not tired Andy.
Yeah, I'm working on that. Yeah, I think it's important. And with Mel, I mean, her schedule is all over the place with kids and practice and.
Any mom can appreciate that.
Yep, and she's working. She does our accounting. So there's a lot of things in the mix here. So if you can take a step back and go, what are our priorities? And we're going to talk about this in just a minute, automating, but what are our priorities and how do we set up a rhythm that's healthy? Because we want to be able to do this long term.
Again, to review, establish a mission, vision, and value. Keep that in front of you. Research expected time and involvement and get a mentor. Find a healthy rhythm and structure. What's next for us?
Identify and discuss roles and expectations. And I alluded to this under research expected time. I think through research, you gain knowledge, and it really can be powerful. Knowledge is power in a lot of ways. So you're able to say, okay, you know what? These are our duties and responsibilities around the house. Let's shift these a little bit because roles and expectations are fluid and they can change through different seasons. Ours have changed. We're about to celebrate 15 years this July. And, financial responsibilities have changed in those 15 years. Amongst a host of other things.
Yep. I gave up the finances of our family, and I refused to take them back.
I've begged to give them back. And he's like, no. But it's all good. It works. It all works. It works out.
So what happens when you don't identify and discuss roles and expectations?
Chaos, frustration, anger that can turn into bitterness. Mm-hmm. And when bitterness takes root in our soul, what we really believe about each other impacts how we respond to each other. Yeah. And if bitterness takes over, then we start to respond to each other out of bitterness, out of these all or nothing statements, and it just derails relationship, it derails communication, it derails mission and vision, why God's called you together in the first place. And so much of that can be avoided simply by talking about, in this season of life, what are the roles going to be and what are our expectations?
And if you struggle with that, we encourage you to go back and listen to the episode we did with Andy and Melody on communication and conflict resolution. It's tough, Again, in my marriage, the families and the individuals I've been able to minister to, a large majority of root issues that they're dealing with boil down to the lack of communication and conflict resolution. So again, just encourage you to go back, listen to that episode. There was a lot of good points, a lot of good teaching and encouragement to help you build that foundation of communication and conflict resolution and begin that growth process for communication in the marriage.
Yeah. One last thing about expectation. Expectations actually start with self-awareness. Because if you aren't aware of yourself, you don't know what to communicate about what you expect. And so here's a tip. If you find that you're frustrated, don't ignore it, pay attention to it. And if it's an emotion, that frustration, give it a language. What am I really frustrated about? It may be Andy's not taking out the trash on a Tuesday. And I realized I just expect that to be part of what he does as a role. And I've never said that to him. So now, instead of continuing to let that frustration say, hey, babe, I need to communicate something to you. When you didn't use the tango like we talked about, when you didn't take out the trash, I felt really frustrated, but I love you, and I know that you want to be responsible with the family, et cetera, et cetera. So self-awareness is the place to start for understanding expectations.
All right, what's next?
Number 5 is to automate as much as you possibly can. And this is what I mean. Automation, it takes the day-to-day energy of making needless decisions, and it channels that energy into what really matters. So here's some super simple stuff. I wear almost the same clothes every week. And she laughs. This is why. Most people don't see me twice in a row. I'm not standing at my closet in the morning going, what am I going to wear? Oh, I need to iron this now. And my morning, the energy that I spend thinking about what I'm going to wear is gone. Yeah. So now when I get to work, I'm focused on more what I need to do because I haven't spent energy thinking about my clothes. I wake up about 5:15ish. I meet my buddy at the gym. I come home. I make the same breakfast. Pretty much for our kids, there's some variation, but it's pretty much the same exact thing. Mel and I eat, we saute vegetables and eggs, and we have coffee. We are taking the guesswork out of these areas of our lives that need to be automated. Now, the weekend is free. We have a good time with that. We like to be free and not. We like to have options, but in these routines, if you can identify what is essential. And there's a book by a guy named Greg McKeon called Essentialism. And it is powerful to help you think through what I'm talking about right now. What do we have that's not essential, that's taking up time? If there's tons of furniture in your house that nobody's using and nobody's, why do you have it? If it's taking up so much time, you want to automate as much as you possibly can to use the energy that you have to put towards the healthy parts of the transition process. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts about that? Has that been helping you, Mel, as we've...
It has been. The morning routines alone, knowing, just having a schedule and really sticking to it. And, I mean, I do appreciate variation, of course, but when time is of the essence, it is so helpful to take a lot of the guesswork out of it.
Yeah, between Brandy and I'm like the simple one. So it's easy for me to identify some things. I think some of the fat we need to trim. And then again, but she's the administrative one. So she's able to organize, plan, and you know, when we are organized, when we are planned, when we have that automation in place, we can tell the difference when we're not. There's less stress. Mm-hmm. There's less busyness. We don't feel burdened and overwhelmed.
Yes.
You know, we get that rhythm. We you know, there's no expectations, no decisions to make. So, automation simplifies. Yeah. Really simplifies things.
You guys sound like an unbelievable team. If you can trim the fat and she organizes, that's rock star right there.
Consistency
that's
is what
good.
we both struggle with. So. We'll have smooth sailing for weeks and months, and then we'll fall off the wagon. So, alrighty. So again, we establish a mission, vision, and values. Keep that in front of us. Research expected time and involvement. Get a mentor involved, find a healthy rhythm and structure, identify and discuss roles and expectations, automate as much as possible. How do we wrap this up?
So last two things, we'll kind of bunch these together. Number 6 is assess, and number 7 is recalibrate. You schedule time to actually sit down and talk. Yeah. Once a week, you build it into the rhythm. And how's everything going? We're working on these things. What do we need to prioritize? Is there frustrations? Do we need to tango about anything if we haven't? And as you sit down and communicate and assess what's working, what's not working, and how do we move forward.
Yeah, recalibrate is your reset. If you need to press a reset somewhere,
Yes.
that's the place to do it.
Yes. And it starts with communication and valuing communication. Not just doing it, but valuing it.
Mm-hmm.
And in this process, honestly, it takes a while. It is work.
That's what I was going to say, especially if you're rolling this out for the first time.
Yep.
We can't expect to do something new 100% right on the first time.
Yes.
Oh, we're still tweaking this process for ourselves.
It really
For
is.
sure.
Yeah, you're right. The thing is, you never really arrive
No.
at these things. This is a roadmap. It's a framework that gives structure to the ongoing process of change and transition.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not afraid of the transition, or it's not destabilizing you. You're able to adjust and flow as needed in a way that helps set you free to be who God's called you to be and do what God's called you to do.
Again, we don't do this perfectly either, but when Brandy and I are in that assessment mode and recalibration mode, that's a level of emotional and mental intimacy that really helps the marriage. Mm-hmm. It strengthens communication. It builds communication. You get to learn something about your spouse. You get the opportunity to express things on your heart. It's really a win-win when you're caught in this mode of, hey, how are things are going? Okay, I care about you. I'm going to listen to what you're saying, and I'm going to adjust according to what you're saying because I love you and because I want to serve you well. So I find this a very valuable part in this process whenever you're as husband and wife, as the Bible instructs us to walk in unity, to help one another and to, make adjustments and tackle an issue, tackle a problem. There's really a great benefit to growing together as husband and wife. Any wrap up on 7 areas of focus for a healthy transition in marriage?
I would say have fun with it. Yeah. Because you're gonna, if you really do sit down and start to implement these things, you're gonna see some life change. That's positive, but it's not gonna just impact you and your family. It's gonna impact others around you. And you're gonna operate out of these values at work. It's just gonna start to flow out of you. And I, in my opinion, that lines up with this bigger idea of as sons and daughters of the King of the Kingdom, our Father in heaven. We are living missionally and pointing people to Him.
Yeah, well, we want to glorify Him. We want to glorify Him. We want to do things with excellence. We want to have that reflection on others. And like you said, putting all this together and working together, having fun with it, is a great way to glorify Him.
Amen.
Amen. Alrighty, so that'll do it. Once again, we appreciate Andy and Melody joining us and going over these things. I think it was helpful, encouraging. So guys, thanks for joining us. We appreciate y'all's heart.
Thank you for the opportunity to do this.
Awesome. Alrighty, that'll do it for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. We thank you for joining us, taking time and listening. As always, we encourage you to subscribe to the podcast, share with your family and friends, and also we would really appreciate it if you could rate and write a review on the podcast. That gives us input to learn how to minister and serve our listeners better. So, okay. That's it for this episode. We'll see you next time on the Healing Place Marriage and Family Podcast.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. For more information about Healing Place Church, visit us at healingplacechurch.org. For more podcast episodes, subscribe to the Healing Place Marriage and Family Podcast on iTunes or the podcast server for your device.